The human freight hauler just crossed into Dominion space, the zone where 47 species have gone extinct, and the pilot's asking if anyone wants coffee. Commander Kael'thas stared at his display screen in absolute horror, his silver skin flushing dark purple with stress hormones as the tracking beacon for Charlotte Brown's cargo vessel blinked cheerfully on the wrong side of the most feared border in the galaxy. Every alarm in Border Station Theta 9 was screaming at maximum volume, red emergency lights strobing across the command center, and his entire bridge crew had gone completely silent in the way people do when witnessing someone about to die. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, someone tell me that sensor reading is wrong. Kael'thas said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell me the human didn't just cross into Dominion space. Confirmed, sir, his sensor officer Zelia replied, her voice shaking. Human vessel Lucky Catch passed the boundary marker 47 seconds ago. She's 300 kilometers into forbidden territory. Evacuate the station! Kael'thas lunged for the emergency broadcast controls. All personnel to escape pods immediately. This is not a drill. The Dominion will consider this an act of... His comm system crackled to life with Charlotte Brown's distinctly human accent, casual and friendly. Hey, Border Station Theta. Whatever. Quick question. Anyone know where the nearest fuel station is? My nav computer's being weird about the local listings. Every being on the bridge turned to stare at the comm speaker like it had just started speaking in ancient prophecy. Kael'thas found his voice first. Miss Brown, you need to turn around immediately. You've entered Dominion space. This is a kill zone. Every species that's crossed this border in the last 200 years has been exterminated. There was a pause. Then, that seems excessive. Are you sure? Because my charts show this is just empty space. No territorial markers or anything. The entire border is the territorial marker. Kael'thas was shouting now, abandoning all command protocols. The Dominion doesn't use signs. They use death. Turn around now before... Sir, Zelia's voice had gone hollow with dread. Dominion vessels are appearing on scanners. 7 contacts. They're surrounding the human ship. The command center fell silent except for the emergency klaxons. Through 2 centuries of galactic history, the Dominion had been the nightmare species that no one spoke about directly. They'd annihilated the Velian collective for crossing their border. They'd rendered the Thek's homeworld uninhabitable as a response to a probe that drifted into their space. 47 species had made the mistake of entering Dominion territory. 47 species no longer existed, and now a human freight hauler was trapped in the middle of their space, surrounded by ships that had never, not once in 200 years, left survivors. Kael'thas watched the scanner display, waiting for the moment when Charlotte Brown's ship would simply cease to exist. His hands were shaking. In 30 years of command, he'd never lost someone under his jurisdiction. He was about to lose a human to the most terrifying force in known space, and there was nothing he could do except watch. Charlotte's voice came through the comm again, still bizarrely casual. Okay, so I'm seeing some ships out here. Big ones. Pretty intimidating design, not gonna lie. Should I don't know, wave or something? What's the protocol for first contact with neighbors? They're not neighbors, at least 5 bridge officers screamed it simultaneously. They're the Dominion, Kael'thas said, forcing his voice to stay level. Miss Brown, listen to me very carefully. Do not make any sudden movements. Do not activate weapons. I don't have weapons, Charlotte interrupted. I'm a freight hauler. I've got cargo containers full of steel beams and coffee beans. Why would I have weapons? Kael'thas closed his eyes. The human had entered the most dangerous territory in the galaxy completely unarmed, asking about fuel stations, offering coffee to her bridge crew. She had no idea she was already dead. The Dominion vessels were holding position around Charlotte's ship, not firing yet, just waiting. That was somehow worse than if they'd destroyed her immediately. Sir, Zelia whispered, what do we do? Kael'thas looked at the display showing 7 Dominion warships surrounding one small human cargo vessel. He thought about the standing orders every species in the sector had received. He thought about 200 years of extinction-level responses to border violations. "We witness," he said quietly, "and we pray to whatever gods humans believe in that they're better at dying than the last 47 species were." 30 seconds passed, then a minute. The Dominion vessels held their formation around Charlotte's ship in what every species in the galaxy recognized as the final containment pattern before extermination. Charlotte Brown's shields remained offline. "Why isn't she running?" Kael'thas gripped the edge of his command console so hard his knuckles turned white. "Why isn't she afraid?" "Sir, I'm reading her ship's biosigns," Zilia said, her voice climbing higher. "Her heart rate it's completely normal, elevated slightly but within human baseline parameters. Her stress hormones aren't spiking, the human's fear response isn't activating." She looked up at Kael'thas with wide, terrified eyes. "Is she broken?" Before Kael'thas could respond, Charlotte's voice came through the comm system again. But this time, she wasn't talking to Border Station Theta 9. She'd opened a direct channel to the Dominion vessels. "Hey there, Dominion ships. This is Charlotte Brown of the Lucky Catch." Her tone was friendly, almost apologetic. "Sorry about the border thing. My GPS must be wonky. It didn't show any territorial boundaries. I'm just passing through on a delivery route. Didn't mean to cause any trouble." The bridge crew stared at the comm speaker in absolute silence. No one in recorded history had ever casually apologized to the Dominion for a border violation. Mostly because no one survived long enough to apologize. The Dominion ships didn't respond, but they also didn't fire. They just hovered there, weapons charged but not firing, like they were waiting for something that wasn't happening. "So, since I've got you on the line," Charlotte continued, apparently interpreting silence as an invitation to keep talking, "I'm actually looking for a fuel station. You guys know if there's one nearby? I've got enough to get maybe another 2 systems over, but I'd rather top off now if possible. Also, if you need my cargo manifest for customs or whatever, I've got steel beams, industrial machinery parts, some agricultural equipment, and about 3 tons of coffee beans, all properly documented." Kael'thas felt like he was watching reality break in real time. The human was treating the Dominion, the species that had exterminated 47 civilizations, like they were customs officials. She was offering them her cargo manifest. She was asking them for directions. "Commander," Celia's voice was barely audible, "the Dominion vessels they're adjusting position, but not for firing." "What do you mean, not for firing?" "I don't know, sir. They're moving, but their weapons are powering down. It's like they're confused." Charlotte spoke again. "Hey, not to be that person, but I noticed your right thruster on the lead ship, the big one with the angular hull. It looks a little misaligned. I used to do maintenance work back on Earth, and that wobble pattern usually means you've got a calibration issue. Might want to get that checked out before it throws off your maneuverability in combat situations." "She's giving them mechanical advice?" Kael'thas lunged for his secure comm channel to Galactic Council headquarters. "This is Commander Kael'thas, Border Station Theta 9. We have a critical situation. A human has entered Dominion space and is currently talking to them." "Yes, talking to them. No, she hasn't been destroyed yet. I don't know why. We need immediate xenopsychology consultation and—" The Dominion ship suddenly broke formation, executing a synchronized maneuver that Kael'thas recognized from ancient tactical databases as their standard intimidation display. 7 massive warships moving in perfect coordination, their hulls reflecting the light of the nearby star, weapons arrays creating geometric patterns that were designed to trigger primal fear responses in prey species. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It had preceded the extinction of entire civilizations. Charlotte's response came through the comm. "Oh, wow, that was actually really impressive. Do you guys do air shows?" "Because that barrel roll was smooth. I've seen military demonstrations that weren't that clean." Several bridge officers made small, broken sounds of disbelief. The Dominion vessels completed their intimidation display and then backed away, not retreating exactly, but creating more distance between themselves and Charlotte's ship, like they were the ones who needed space. "Sir," Celia said, and now her voice carried a note of hysteria. "The Dominion is backing away from the human. They performed their extinction-level intimidation protocol and she complimented their formation flying." "I'm reading increased comm traffic within the Dominion fleet," another officer reported. "Encrypted, but the volume suggests they're consulting with higher command. They've never had to do that before. They just kill trespassers." Charlotte spoke again, completely unaware that she was rewriting 2 centuries of galactic history. "Listen, I know I'm probably messing up your patrol route or whatever, but I made a whole pot of coffee before I realized I crossed into your space, and it's just going to go to waste if someone doesn't drink it. You guys want some? I've got plenty. Fair warning, though, it's Earth strength, which apparently is pretty intense for most species, but if you're interested, I'm happy to share." The human had just offered to share coffee with the most feared military force in known space. Kael'thas sat down heavily in his command chair, watching the impossible unfold on his displays. "Get me a xenopsychologist," he said quietly, "and possibly a priest, because either we're witnessing a miracle or humanity is about to make the Dominion's extinction list 48 species long." Retry Zara arrived at Border Station Theta 9 within the hour, the Council's foremost xenopsychologist, materializing via emergency transport with her characteristic crystalline features reflecting the emergency lighting in fractured rainbows. She reviewed the comm recordings twice, her large eyes growing wider with each replay of Charlotte's casual conversation with the Dominion. "Impossible," she whispered, pulling up tactical analyses on her holographic display. "The Dominion's entire power structure is built on psychological warfare through fear. They don't need to be the strongest military force. They just need to be the most terrifying. Every species that encounters them experiences immediate, overwhelming fear responses that trigger flight or freeze instincts." "The human isn't doing either," Kael'thas said grimly. "She's just talking to them." "I can see that." Zara's fingers moved rapidly through data streams. "But it shouldn't be possible. The Dominion's ships are designed to trigger deep evolutionary fear responses. The angular hulls mimic ambush predator profiles. The weapon signatures create subsonic frequencies that activate threat detection in most species' neurology. They've perfected terror over 2 centuries. Then why isn't Charlotte Brown terrified?" Zara pulled up Earth's historical database, and her expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. "Because humans don't have prey instincts. Look at this: Earth's apex predators. Bears, wolves, big cats, crocodiles. Species that actively hunted humans throughout their evolution. And humans didn't just survive them, they climbed to the top of the food chain anyway." "So the human has experience with predators," Kael'thas said. "That doesn't explain why she's treating the Dominion like neighbors with boundary issues." "It's worse than that." Zara highlighted sections of human history. "Humans evolved with constant existential threats. Predators, yes, but also extreme weather, disease, resource scarcity, other humans. Their fear response isn't about paralysis or flight, it's about assessment and problem solving. They feel fear, then they manage it and act anyway." Charlotte's voice came through the comm again. "Still here, still waiting for that fuel station location. Also, I ran some quick calculations on your formation pattern from earlier, and I think if you tightened the spacing by about 40 meters, you'd get better visual impact. Just a thought." "She's giving them tactical advice now," Celia said faintly. Zara pulled up more data, her hands shaking slightly. "According to these records, Charlotte Brown grew up in something called Detroit. Urban environment, high crime rates, economic hardship. She's been intimidated before, by her own species, in survival situations. She looked up at Kael'thas. The Dominion's psychological warfare is designed for prey species. Charlotte Brown is a persistence predator who's seen worse on her own planet. The comm traffic from the Dominion fleet is increasing, an officer reported. They're definitely consulting higher command. Multiple encrypted channels active. They don't know what to do with her, Zara said, understanding flooding her features. Their entire strategy is predicated on prey responses: fear, flight, freeze, submission. Humans don't have those defaults. They have curiosity, problem-solving, and... She gestured at the comm speaker as Charlotte hummed softly, apparently making a sandwich while waiting for a response. Casual confidence that they can handle whatever situation they're in. Kael'thas watched his displays showing the Dominion vessels maintaining their new, increased distance from Charlotte's ship. She's negotiating with them like they're equals, like this is just a normal diplomatic situation. She doesn't know she shouldn't be, Zara said quietly. To her, this is just another species she's encountered. Slightly intense, maybe. Poor communication skills, definitely, but not fundamentally different from any other contact scenario. The Dominion has spent 200 years being the ultimate predator species. She looked at the frozen Dominion formation on the tactical display, and they just met something that doesn't recognize them as predators. What happens when an empire built on fear encounters a species that domesticated wolves and called them man's best friend? Kael'thas asked. I think, Zara said slowly, we're about to find out. Look, the Dominion's formation is changing again. On the display, the 7 Dominion warships were repositioning, not into attack formation, not into intimidation display, into something that looked almost like a protective escort pattern. Charlotte's voice came through cheerfully. Oh, hey, are you guys staying? Cool. Company makes the trip less boring, so about that fuel station. 200 years of galactic terror, Kael'thas said, watching the impossible unfold on his screens. Ended because a freight hauler from Detroit wasn't scared enough. Zara was reviewing psychological profiles, her expression shifting between academic fascination and existential dread. The Dominion's entire civilization is having a paradigm collapse. Their power comes from being feared. Charlotte Brown just treated them like slightly grumpy neighbors, offered them coffee and gave them maintenance advice. She looked up. She broke their psychology by being aggressively normal. Sir, Zilia interrupted, we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion. First time in ever, sir. They're actually communicating. Kael'thas and Zara exchanged glances. Put it through, Kael'thas said. The voice that came through was deep, resonant, and carried harmonics that should have triggered immediate fear responses. But after listening to Charlotte Brown talk about coffee and thruster calibration for the past 20 minutes, it just sounded uncertain. Human vessel lucky catch. Fuel station coordinates are being transmitted to your navigation system. Safe passage is granted. Silence filled the bridge. Charlotte responded, Oh, awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your patrol shift. The Dominion didn't respond. Their ships held their escort formation as Charlotte's vessel began moving toward the fuel coordinates. Zilia whispered, she just thanked the Dominion and wished them a good shift. And they're escorting her to the fuel station, another officer added, voice hollow. Zara was typing rapidly, already composing reports for the council. 2 centuries of absolute terror, 47 species extinct, and it took one human freight hauler being polite and unafraid to completely dismantle their entire psychological warfare strategy. Kael'thas slumped in his command chair, watching the Dominion escort a human cargo vessel through their forbidden space like she was a preferred trader. How, he asked no one in particular, are humans like this? Zara compiled her analysis while Charlotte refueled at a Dominion station, a facility that hadn't seen a non-Dominion vessel in 2 centuries. The xenopsychologist's report would reshape galactic understanding of both the Dominion and humanity. Humans don't have prey instincts, Zara explained to the emergency council session she'd convened via holographic link. They're persistence predators who evolved climbing a food chain filled with species stronger, faster, and more lethal than them. Charlotte Brown naturally assumes she can handle this situation because that's what humans do. They encounter problems and solve them. But the Dominion, one council member started, built their entire empire on fear, Zara interrupted. Psychological dominance through terror. Its brilliant strategy against prey species who freeze, flee, or submit when confronted with apex predators. But humans don't scare easily enough for it to work. They assess, adapt, and persist. Charlotte Brown saw intimidating ships and thought communication issue, not existential threat. On the display, Charlotte was apparently chatting with a Dominion fuel technician, showing them pictures of Earth on her datapad. Her offer to help with their thruster wasn't manipulation, Zara continued. It was genuine. Humans are problem solvers. They see something not working correctly, and their instinct is to fix it. The Dominion has never encountered a species that responded to their military might with friendly mechanical advice. Kael'thas received a direct comm from Charlotte as her ship prepared to depart the fuel station. "Hey, Commander. Sorry about all the chaos earlier. Didn't mean to cause an interdimensional incident or whatever. For what it's worth, the Dominion folks seem pretty reasonable once you get past the whole intimidating exterior thing." "Miss Brown," Kael'thas said carefully, "you do understand you were in mortal danger? The Dominion has exterminated 47 species for doing exactly what you did." "Yeah, I picked up on that from all the screaming," Charlotte said cheerfully. "But look, I've dealt with aggressive drivers in rush-hour traffic, angry customers who blame me for corporate policies I don't control, and Michigan winters that'll kill you if you're not careful. This was just Tuesday with a space theme. The Dominion just needs to work on their communication skills. Ever tried just asking people to stay out instead of, the whole murder thing?" Kael'thas didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "That's your takeaway from this?" "I mean, yeah, clear signage would prevent like 90% of border violations." "Just a thought." There was a pause. "Anyway, I'm heading out now. Promised the Dominion I'd respect their boundaries in the future. Updated my nav charts with the correct border markers they transmitted. Oh, and I left them my contact info in case they ever need a reliable hauler for cargo runs. Their logistics setup seems pretty isolated. Might benefit from some outside trade connections." "You gave the Dominion your business card," Kael'thas said flatly. "Networking is important in freight hauling," Charlotte replied. "You never know when a connection might lead to steady work." On the tactical display, the Dominion vessels were withdrawing from Charlotte's position, pulling back into their own territory for the first time in anyone's memory. Not retreating in defeat, but disengaging because the situation had been resolved peacefully through conversation. Charlotte's ship crossed back over the border into neutral space, and Kael'thas watched as the Dominion vessels took up their standard patrol positions. But something had changed. The formation was different, less aggressive, more observational. "Safe travels, Miss Brown," Kael'thas said finally, "and perhaps consider reviewing border charts before your next route." "Already on it, Commander." "Oh, and hey, if you talk to the Dominion again, let them know the coffee offer stands. They seem like they could use a break. Patrolling empty space for 2 centuries has got to be boring." The comm clicked off, and Kael'thas stared at the spot where Charlotte's ship had been. Zara's voice came through his command channel. "Commander, I'm receiving data from long-range sensors. The Dominion just transmitted something through official channels. It's a formal communication request to the Galactic Council." "For what?" "Trade negotiations." Zara sounded like she couldn't believe her own words. "They're requesting to open trade negotiations. First contact in 200 years. They specifically mentioned cultural exchange opportunities and revised border protocols." Kael'thas looked at his bridge crew, all of whom were staring at their displays in shock. 200 years of silence, 47 species extinct, and it took one human freight hauler treating them like reasonable people to open diplomatic channels. "She didn't know they weren't reasonable," Zara said. "That's the point. Charlotte Brown approached them with the default human assumption that problems can be solved through communication and mutual benefit. And she was so genuinely confident in that approach that the Dominion didn't know how to respond except to comply. On Kalthas's personal display, a message notification appeared from Charlotte Brown. He opened it. "Hey, Commander, just remembered, that fuel station had amazing coffee, like actually good. If the Dominion ever does open trade, they should export that. Would sell great on Earth. Just saying." Charlotte. Kalthas forwarded the message to Zara without comment. Her response came back immediately. "She's already planning trade routes with them. Of course she is." The Galactic Council's emergency session devolved into chaos within minutes. "The human befriended the Dominion?" Ambassador Thexion's voice scaled up 3 octaves. "The species that exterminated the Velian collective is now discussing trade agreements?" "She didn't befriend them," Kalthas said tiredly over the holographic link, having been summoned to explain the impossible. "She just wasn't afraid, and it broke their whole system. The Dominion built 2 centuries of power on being terrifying. Charlotte Brown treated them like slightly grumpy neighbors and offered them coffee. Their entire psychological warfare strategy collapsed." Zara pulled up her final analysis. 200 years of terror ended because a freight hauler from Detroit was too busy thinking about fuel efficiency and delivery schedules to be properly scared. The Dominion has formally requested trade negotiations, cultural exchange programs, and revised border protocols that include, and I quote, "clearly marked territorial boundaries with appropriate signage." "They're putting up signs?" another council member asked weakly. "Charlotte suggested it would prevent confusion," Zara said. They agreed. 3 systems away, Charlotte Brown completed her delivery route, docking at Station Meridian 7 with her usual efficiency. She logged the day's events in her ship's computer with characteristic brevity. Minor detour through Dominion space. Made contact. Situation resolved. Fuel efficiency. Acceptable. Her personal comm buzzed. Message from her brother Marcus. "Hey sis, how's the space trucking life treating you?" Charlotte grinned and typed back while unloading cargo containers. "Pretty good. Made some new friends today. Might have accidentally ended a 200-year Cold War. Usual stuff. How's Mom?" "What? Long story. Tell you at Thanksgiving." She pocketed her comm and headed to the station's dispatch office to pick up her next delivery assignment, completely unaware that her name was being discussed in emergency sessions across half the galaxy. Back at Border Station Theta 9, Kalthas watched the long-range sensors tracking Dominion vessel movements. Their patrol patterns had shifted. They were still maintaining their border, but now they were escorting human ships through designated corridors, transmitting navigation data, even responding to comm requests with actual words instead of ominous silence. The Dominion had just updated their protocols. Human vessels were now classified as preferred traders with priority passage rights. "How are humans like this?" Kalthas asked, watching another human cargo ship receive safe passage coordinates from Dominion Command. Zara, still present via holographic link, pulled up her comprehensive report on human psychology. They're pursuit predators who evolved climbing the food chain by being more persistent than everything that tried to eat them. They domesticated wolves. They turned every threat into either a tool or a pet. Fear, for humans, is a suggestion, not a command. Charlotte Brown looked at the most terrifying force in the galaxy and thought, problem to solve instead of threat to flee. And the Dominion? Had their entire worldview shattered by someone being aggressively friendly and helpful. Zara smiled slightly. Turns out, psychological warfare doesn't work on species who respond to intimidation with maintenance advice and coffee offers. Zilia looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Charlotte Brown. She's asking if we can forward a message to the Dominion." "What does it say?" Kalthas asked warily. "Thanks for the fuel station wreck. Coffee was great. Sent you guys some earth blends as a thank you gift. Try the medium roast. It's less intense than the dark. Safe travels. Charlotte Brown. Lucky catch." She sent them coffee. Kael'thas said. She gave the Dominion a gift basket. There's a follow-up message, Zelia added. From Dominion Command. They're thanking her. And asking for brewing instructions. Zara started laughing, a crystalline sound that rang through the bridge. The Dominion is learning to make coffee from a human freight hauler. This is going in every xenopsychology textbook for the next 1,000 years. On the main display, Charlotte's ship jumped to FTL, heading toward her next delivery with the same casual confidence she'd shown entering Dominion space. Behind her, the most feared military force in galactic history was adjusting their coffee makers according to her instructions. 200 years, Kael'thas said softly. 47 species extinct, endless terror, and one human ends it by accident because she needed fuel and thought being polite was the obvious approach. That's humanity, Zara said, finalizing her reports. They don't conquer through fear or force. They just show up, assume everyone's reasonable until proven otherwise, offer practical help, and somehow make friends with the monsters. Because to them, there are no monsters, just potential friends who haven't been properly introduced yet. Weeks later, the first official Dominion trade delegation arrived at a neutral station, escorted by the same warships that had surrounded Charlotte Brown. They brought samples of their coffee and a formal request to meet with Charlotte Brown of Earth, freight specialist and diplomatic pioneer. Charlotte's response, transmitted from somewhere in the outer colonies. Diplomatic pioneer, I just asked for directions, but sure, I'm down to meet. Should I bring coffee? The Dominion's response came back almost immediately. Yes, please bring coffee. And thus began a new era of galactic politics, founded not on fear or power, but on the profound human belief that almost any problem could be solved with clear communication, practical help, and a good cup of coffee. Kael'thas kept Charlotte's first transmission framed in his office. Hey, sorry about the border thing. GPS must be wonky. The sentence that ended 2 centuries of terror, with an apology and a technical complaint. Very human indeed.